what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power, and the finals of the 2025 Prague Pro just wrapped up. Very exciting show, probably one of the most anticipated shows of the year outside of the major ones like the Olympia or the Arnold. You had the open bodybuilding debut of Keone Pearson. You had Samson versus Martin's rematch from the Olympia, and the results were interesting. In 5th place, you had Joan Pradels. In 4th place, you had Keone Pearson, placing 4th at his open debut. In 3rd place, you had Michael Krizo. In 2nd place, Samson Dauda. And in 1st place, Martin Fitzwater. So first, let's talk about Martin versus Samson, because I think that was the most exciting battle of the night. From prejudging to finals, that was the very clear top two. Both of them clearly looked improved from the Olympia just 2 weeks ago. Now, I had Martin winning at prejudging, and I also had Martin winning at finals. So when you look at the top two comparison here of Samson and Martin, there's two things that are clear. One thing, like I said, Samson was improved from the Olympia. He was bigger, he was fuller. He talked about this a lot going into the show, that at the Olympia he was about 280. At this show he wanted to be over 300 pounds at least on stage. So he was much bigger, much fuller here. But Martin, I feel like, was undeniable here. His condition, his detail, his thickness, that grainy density that Martin had. Martin's lower body looked absolutely insane here. Just the separation in the quads, the cross striations, deep dugout carved hamstrings, striated glutes, just detailed from head to toe. But the lower body in particular, compared to Samson's, I felt like was undeniably better. And so that's kind of how I looked at this top two. It's like, yeah, they both looked better than the Olympia, but I think Samson's bar was a little bit lower because Samson was, I think we can all agree, Samson was pretty off at the Olympia. It was not the Samson we were used to seeing at all. So him improving upon that was kind of a low bar. He kind of could have done anything to come in fuller and look better than that look. But with Martin, it's a little bit different because I felt like Martin looked phenomenal at the Olympia. So for him to come in here and clearly be the best shape of his life, the best Martin we've ever seen, peaked perfectly, ripped, conditioned, detailed. So I felt like the bar for Martin was much higher here in order for him to look better from the Olympia. Yes, they both looked better, but the version of Samson that we saw here in Prague was kind of like, that was the version we should have seen at the Olympia. But the Olympia version of Martin was what we should have seen from Martin. He looked fantastic there, so he raised the bar from that, which in my opinion is more impressive. And then again, when you just compare the detail, especially the lower body, but even the chest, like Martin has a crazy thick, dense chest, but the separation and the striations in the chest is crazy. He's a very complete bodybuilder. He's just very dangerous. It's hard to pick out a real weak point in his physique. He's very proportional. He's very balanced. He's very dense in almost all the poses. Crazy detail in almost all the poses. I think as you're watching this top two, I think I would give him definitely the abs and thighs. I think I would give him front double, front lat spread, most muscular. I think Samson still takes the side chest. Honestly, Samson is good in the side poses. When you look at Martin's side tricep here, Martin's side tricep was insane. I would give that to Martin. Back double, I think I'd give to Martin. Maybe you could give the back lat spread to Samson. But I think Martin, in a lot of these poses, you can make a strong argument for him taking those shots. And again, we gotta really give Martin his flowers here. I said this in the prejudging video. He's kind of becoming like Phil Heath in the sense that the Dream Killer nickname. Keep in mind that last year at the Olympia, it was his Olympia debut, and he was top 4. Just think about how impressive that is. But then also last year at Prague, which he won, he beat Chris Bumstead at his open debut. Maybe the most anticipated open debut of all time was Chris Bumstead's. And then we had Keone's open debut, another highly anticipated champion bodybuilder from another division that everyone says is going to be crazy successful and open. Martin defeats him at his open debut. But now on top of that, Samson Dauda, a Mr. Olympia champ, looking for redemption after a pretty lackluster Olympia showing. Now Martin has beaten a Mr. Olympia champ in Samson Dauda, and it wasn't an off Samson. Like I said, this was the Samson that I feel like we should have seen at the Olympia. So Martin didn't beat a lackluster Samson. This was a pretty good Samson. I'm not going to deny that. But I think that's what makes this even more impressive for Martin. From last year's Prague show to this year's Prague show, including last year's Olympia, including this year's Olympia, Martin has now beaten Brandon Curry, Samson Dauda, Chris Bumstead, and Keone Pearson. So in 1 year, he has beaten a total of 11 Olympia titles. Chris with 6, Keone with 3, Brandon and Samson each with 1. I think Martin has proven he's here to stay, and he means business. And this is the type of detail that I feel like we want to see from a guy as thick as Martin. This is the type of detail I want to see winning shows like Prague. I want to see him win a show like the Arnold, and I know that he's planning on doing the Arnold. Martin looked great here. There's no denying it. Now, let's take a look at the call-out from the finals that also included Keone, Joan Purdells, and Michael Krizo. So Keone, I think, definitely looked better at the finals. He looked improved, and I think that's what moved him up into 4th place. I think he was in 5th at prejudging, and he did enough at finals to move up a little bit. I don't think Joan really improved from prejudging to finals. Keone did, and I think that's what put him in 4th. And why did Keone end up in 4th? Why was he not in the top 3? Why did he not end up in the top 2? Why did he not win the show? And I still think in my mind, it just had to have came down to size. I think he must not have been big enough. There were some big dudes in this lineup, and I feel like Keone just got lost in that mix. He got outsized, and he got kind of pushed to the outside every time because the big guys just kind of overshadowed him. And I do think that Keone could have came in a little bit tighter for this show. Like, even when you look at him compared to Martin, they're very similar height. But Martin, his detail and that crispness was just a whole nother level than Keone's. And again, the lower body of Martin was insane. And I think Keone's lower body didn't look quite as impressive or maybe as proportional as it did at the Olympia. Like, his legs looked a little bit downsized or a little bit flat. They just didn't look as crazy as they looked at the Olympia. And I think that's another thing that kind of held him back here. The legs, to me, is probably one of the areas that he needs to add size to be competitive and open. Because like upper body wise, in some of the poses that are more focused on the upper body, like front lat spread, front double bicep, I felt like Keone was still really hanging in there in those poses. But poses like the abs and thighs, for example, where the legs are really highlighted, I felt like I wasn't as drawn to looking at Keone. And I think even more impressively, and I feel like we saw this coming, Michael Krizo in 3rd, beating Keone at Keone's open debut. Was this the best Krizo that we've ever seen? He looked way better at the finals. Krizo looked full as a house, crisp, conditioned, detailed. I know he's kind of getting overshadowed here because Samson and Martin is the main story. That was the main battle. But Krizo at the finals of this show may have been the best Krizo that we've ever seen. And he defeated Keone Pearson. And there was just something different about Krizo going into this show, and I think this might be one of those instances where you can tell from a physique update that a guy is going to be on. Because Krizo, the updates that we were seeing from him at a couple days out from this show, it looked like a different Krizo. He looked crazy in those most muscular videos and stuff that we were seeing at 2-3 days out. He looked different, and you could tell he knew he was on. You could tell he was confident. You could tell he knew he looked crazy, and he looked crazy here. In top 3 in this group of guys, Keone Pearson is one thing, but to be considered next to Samson and Martin, the best Martin we've ever seen. This Martin, I think this might be a stretch. This Martin, I think, would have been top 3 at the Olympia. If Martin looked like this at the Olympia, he would have been top 3. He wouldn't have been 5th. I'll go one step further. I can see a world where this Martin beats Derek. This Martin at the Olympia, I think, beats Olympia Derek. So for me, I just want to point that out because Martin was the guy that I was just the most impressed with here. He was the clear standout for me at prejudging. He was just the guy that looked the most different out of everybody. And as individuals in the lineups, you could just see a whole different level of detail from him. And that's, thick, detailed, complete. That's a very hard bodybuilder to beat. I don't see, I'm sure people probably will think this was a controversial call because it is Samson Dauda, I think this was the right call. I think Martin deserved this, and what he brought to this Prague stage was just absolutely nuts. But let me know what you guys think of this decision in the comments down below. How did you guys have it? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What did you think of Martin? What did you think of Samson? What did you think about Keone's open debut and what we saw from Krizo? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys, appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.